Um, Girls, you're going to be recorded now, so you have to be nice. Okay, so this is just the beginning. For those who we're watching this not live, we're just going to tell you that we're skipping forward. I know a few people couldn't make it today, so they asked for everyone's given permission. I was just talking about how the intentionality to where the group is sitting. I use this this picture of The Simpsons to sort of set the tone. Why? Because at every episode of The Simpsons, you know they're going to be there, and it sort of sets a tone for the show, right? That there's always an automatic laugh. And I would say the same is similar to this. Like, don't be running around on a computer, on a treadmill. Make sure that you're in a space that you can call this sacred space for a given amount of time. Okay. So now I want you to describe your setting that you've envisioned where you're going to be. What's around you, or let's start from now. Like, what's around you, where you're sitting now? Let's say you were doing services where you're sitting. What's around you? What's missing? What type of screen are you using? So let's just think about that for a moment. Emily, why don't you share first? Like, what's around you? What's missing?
I mean, what's missing is our community, yeah, for sure. But if we're outside on our patio where there's a couch and a little table, we'll have maybe we'll have the computer up to watch the service, but then I don't know if we'll I suppose either print out the Mox or just read it on our phones, maybe have our own phones, just have it pulled up that way. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll put the kids in charge of clicking.
So, Barbara, what type of screen would you be using?
That's a very good question. Not an upright like this, I don't think, because around me is just like an office. So I don't know. I think I would have to have some symbolic things for the children.
Well, Barbara, I don't think your show is doing it. Are you doing
Mom,
it?
remember, everything you ask and have this conversation is going to be recorded and seen by everyone.
I see what you're saying. So if we choose to participate outside, then that will be around us, right? We will be outside, and I see the children sort of sitting or running around in the back of the playgrounds or something like that or whatever. But I was thinking about inside in case we have to do it. We have to do it inside, in our own homes. So I guess it's two different. I'm not really sure what we're going to do yet, if we're going to participate with the synagogue or not.
Okay.
Inside makes it more, we have to become more creative to try to bring it in.
So the reason I say this is because it's really important, I believe, for us to find sort of like, just like we would find our seat every year for the holiday, that we also sort of find our surroundings, right? And to set that. So I'm just going to give an example of things around me. This is like a little toy that I'm using for another program, by the way. It's not just here because I love toys, which is also true. But like, if this was my space for services, which it won't be because it's just too narrow, but if it was, I might want to take this off because it's a distraction, right? Just like you wouldn't necessarily have like all sorts of items around you during the holidays in your seat at synagogue. You're not going to want that. You're also going to want to have a place for your Moxor. Emily, you talked about it. Maybe it's a Moxor on a phone. Maybe it's a split screen on your computer. Maybe it's like a stand, what we call a stender. So whatever you plan on doing with your Moxor, make sure that space is open. Make sure all the things that you would need around you to have a successful holiday and a successful prayer experience. You set your surroundings, which will help you set your expectations. What you're going to click with, how you'll connect, make sure your Wi-Fi is up, and if not, is there a backup? What's missing? So maybe, Barbara, you mentioned putting some items on the table. Maybe that's helpful, like you saw in the first slide. What is around you? Who is around you? And how long can they sit? So Temple of Aaron has made and really this was sort of my call, is that like Zoom fatigue is real. So especially if there's young children, Barbara, you've already mentioned your grandchildren running around, but you haven't mentioned them sitting and watching services, right? So
No.
So how do you interact and make this a fun experience? So Temple of Aaron is going to be doing a bunch of things. We have our youth services that we'll be filming separately, both for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are different. Well, we're also going to release, I think, some games like how many times Rabbi Fine mentions this word, what colors are these, so the kids can sort of pay attention to the screen and have sort of games going while services are taking place to keep them busy. And we've also made a conscious decision not to have 3.5-hour services, because I just knowing from Annie's school experience, sitting in front of a computer for that long and having any sort of expectation of them being successful is probably a bad bet. And so we'd rather try to compound the service as much as possible, and then have extra stuff that people can watch. Like the parents can watch the sermons on their own. Billy and Stevie probably won't get so much out of my sermons. Not that the congregants will, but I imagine Billy,
Yes,
9 and 6-year-olds will even have less of a connection. Okay, so next. There's also a difference between Keva and Cava. Now I'm going to read this paragraph. This is from Susanna Heschel, who is a PhD, also famously the daughter of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. She is in her own right a pretty important scholar herself. There's a specific difficulty with Jewish prayer. There are laws, fixed texts. On the other hand, prayer is the worship of the heart, the outpouring of the soul, a matter of devotion. Thus, Jewish prayer is guided by two opposite principles: order and outburst, regularity and spontaneity, uniformity and individuality, law and freedom. These principles are the two poles in which Jewish prayer revolves. Since each of the two moves in opposite direction, equilibrium can be maintained if only if both are equal force. However, the pole of regularity usually proves to be stronger than the pole of spontaneity, and as a result, there's a perpetual danger of the prayer becoming mere habit, a mechanical performance and an exercise of repetitionness. The fixed pattern and regularity of our services tends to stifle the spontaneity of devotion. Our great problem, therefore, is how to not let the principle of regularity impair the power of devotion. That is a problem that concerns not only prayer, but the whole sphere of Jewish observance. He who is not aware of this central difficulty is a simpleton. He who offers a simple solution is a quack. So there's these two ideas. There's Keva and Cava, which are both very important. Our fixed prayer, which, going to Shabbat services, going even to high holiday services, is fixed in a certain time and space. And then there's the outburst of love or devotion. So for some of you, it might be a spiritual retreat, or maybe sitting at the bedside of a loved one, and the prayer of the heart. And those are both really important to Jewish prayer. And I would suggest that neither exists without the other. You can't be successful in your outburst of prayer if you don't have regular prayer. And if you only have regular prayer and no outburst, it will be dry. And you need both. And this high holiday is no exception. The crazy thing about us this year is that so many of us, especially the rabbis, I don't speak for myself, but I know many of my friends, we're so obsessed usually once we have services down, like last year, Emily can attest to, we had all these different types of outbursts, whether it was through music, whether it was through a different type of sermon, whether we had these walkthrough experiences in our different spaces, whether it's just the rabbi speaking or different musical pieces, or we do all different sorts of, we had a totally revamped Yizkor service last year that was really emotional for a lot of people. This year, that's what we spend all year doing, or all high holiday season doing, is trying to prepare for these outbursts alongside the fixed prayer. This year, most rabbis and lay leaders are spending the time to make sure that fixed prayer happens, right? Because if we have to choose, we want to make sure that our services and not just like random outbursts of love, which are also important, but people want sort of that regularity and that fixed prayer. So we're going to have to spend some time each individually. How do we do that? And if the synagogue releases certain things, take advantage of them, because the fixed prayer is going to be even harder this year, because you're not going to even be in the space or surrounded by people, or listening to someone on video is not the same as listening live, right? That's why people pay money to go to concerts and not just listen to the CD, which is fun too, but it's a different experience. So the key here, and we said this earlier, is to be intentional in what we do. Okay. Rabbi Neil Gilman, alav shalom, was one of my teachers at the Jewish Theological Seminary. And he said something that I repeat almost every holiday season, which is find 2 minutes. If you're able to have 2 minutes of a prayer experience during a service, you've accomplished more than 99% of everyone else in the congregation. 2 minutes. So a lot of people say 3 hours is so long for Shabbat services. Or if you go to some shuls, 6 hours for high holiday service is too long. And that's right. No one can pray that long. And if they are, I'd like to talk to them, because it'd be a fascinating conversation. But what you're really looking for is 2 minutes in that 3 hours. And just like any job you go to, let's say you work in an office, you're not necessarily highly productive unless you have a lot of Red Bulls from 9 to 5, right? You try to find time in which you're productive. Emily, I'm sure not every class you've taught has been perfect every single time, and you've had the same energy every time. But when you do have that moment where you connect with a child and they understand or learn or get their ABCs, she's a kindergarten teacher, first grade, kindergarten, first grade. Kindergarten, okay. So, and Barbara also was a first grade teacher. Well, Barbara taught more than first grade, right?
Mostly first grade.
Mostly first grade. Okay. So, when those kids get it, the feeling you get, which it's a high, right? Because when kids learn, you get excited. Well, you can't have that all day, all the time, or you'd be in another world. So there should be no exception or for the prayer. You're really looking for 2 minutes, and we provide 3 to whatever hours to be able to do that with, okay? And you want to be able to do that every holiday with fixed prayer and spontaneous prayer. You want to find 2 minutes in your heart, whether it's Yisker when you're thinking of your loved one, or whether it's just something the rabbi said that intrigues you, maybe you even disagreed with it, that forces you to pray deeper. And you need the time, like maybe it's, a melody that you love every year, Avinu Malkeinu or Zochreinu or B'Sefer Chaim, something that triggers you to feel like it's the holiday season. Listen to the sermons. Let them challenge you. Even if you don't agree with them, that's okay. I told the story last time, I'm going to tell it again. My mom can laugh, but I remember one time I was in rabbinical school very early on, and the tradition at the synagogue I grew up at was to stay late for Kiddush lunch, which is similar to Temple of Aaron today. And my dad, we got home, so it was probably like 3 hours after shul, maybe it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And my father was so livid about the sermon, and he said to me, he was really red in the face. If you ever give a sermon like that when you're a rabbi, and then I laughed. He said, "What? You agreed with the sermon?" I said, "No, he did his job." And my dad said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's 4 hours later, and you're still talking about the sermon, right? You don't have to agree with every sermon. If you did, that means frankly, if you agree with every sermon, your rabbi is not doing his or her job. He's just pandering to the audience, which is a lot of rabbis do that, but which is fine. But you want to disagree at times. You also want to be challenged to say, maybe I didn't look at the world like that with hope, or even with something that's gloomy. You want sermons to evoke some sort of emotion in you. If you ever feel a little sweat up here during a sermon, that's good, right? I would say that's challenging. And I've said this before. Sometimes I say things that I don't even agree with, but I say because I know it will challenge people. Tefillah, let the cantor who's ever leading services sort of take you through the music. Sometimes sing along at home, even if it sounds silly. Sometimes just sit back and listen to one of your favorite tefillot and let the cantor's music sort of take you away. Sometimes ask your kids. This year, if you're on video, some of you can rewind it. Maybe you want to teach that to your kids. It's some of the shorter ones. And then setting. Be intentional about your setting. Firmly in a place. I would suggest to all of you to pick your place now, where you're going to be. Set that surrounding. And also maybe during the holiday season, get outside, get a little fresh air, take a moment to breathe. But be intentional in all that you're doing, so that it feels like prayer, even if you're not in your regular seat. So, hi, Melissa. Melissa, just so you know, this is being, we're gonna stop for questions. Just so you know, this is being recorded, okay?
I just want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Slide before, can you go back to it? Do you mind?
Sure.
So you were talking about the 2 minutes of fixed prayer. Can you give an example of what 2 minutes of spontaneous prayer would be? Maybe I missed what you were saying. I apologize.
Sure.
If I did.
No, don't apologize. There's, if let's say spontaneous prayer, for example, you're at a loved one's bedside, right? And you're saying, "Dear God, please help this person live," right, or recover. That's an example of spontaneous prayer. On the holidays, spontaneous prayer could come from just a moment, cantor singing, and you say to myself, like, I'm not going to use your children because I know them well, so I'll just use the word child. My child needs help in X, Y, and Z. You know, I think a lot of us, even myself on the Bima, take a moment to just sit and listen to the tefillot, but say something under our breath, or say a few words in Hebrew that we know, whether it's the Shema or something, that while it's fixed, the intentionality behind it can be spontaneous.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you want to make time for all of that, so you have the opportunity to really navigate your own spirituality and your own soul and where your own mind is. We all go into the holidays, even though we're doing the same prayers, we all go with a different mentality, whether it's a life crisis we're facing, whether it's something we're thankful for, whether it's a struggle we've had, especially this year. I mean, the coronavirus has hit us all in different ways. Every single one of us is acting differently. My friends and I joke that there's a spectrum, we call it COVIDox instead of Orthodox. Like, there's a spectrum of like how people are responding. There are those who like will wear their mask outside, even if they're 30 feet away from people and they're still afraid. There's some who will be outside in a mask, but they'll sit close to people. There's some who, when they're outside, they don't feel like they need a mask. And there's others who like never feel they have a mask. And there's like a spectrum of people on how they feel. And we're all living in this world together. So I imagine this high holidays will bring in different prayers from different people, not just because of COVID-19, but also all the elements that come along with it. Does that help, Melissa? Great. Okay, so for those of you who have been to prayer so far, whether it's a weekday prayer or Shabbat services, whether it's online or I would say online, let's talk about that. What are some of the, I'm calling these the 3 T's, the tricks, the triggers, or treatments? How do you, for example, I'm in this blank space. How do I get ready for prayer? Right, it's easy when you walk. I always say the prayer experience for a synagogue happens the second you walk through the door, not the door of the sanctuary, the door of the synagogue. So, you know, it's the first thing you see, and the smiling faces, and you start to get mentally, I'm here in this new place. So just like, you know, your mouth waters when you walk into a restaurant, right? Because you smell and you see other people's meals and you start to feel that way. So what are some of the tricks, triggers, and treatments that you have done so far? Has anyone here been to a virtual service? No? Barbara, have you been to one?
Online?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you do anything to prepare yourself for that?
No. And this is my biggest fear. This is not my fear, but this is where it's the hardest thing with COVID. How am I going to get to this point? You know, I guess as I start thinking more about Rosh Hashanah, my brain will get there. You know, my emotions will start and I'll start to prepare. But that's my, you know, biggest.
And you married one of the most religious men I know. So it's hard. That's, you know, surprising you. So like here's the some tricks, right? So some people calm their breathing. I'm bringing in a breathing coach twice before the holidays, once in the middle and once after. I did it once last year and I found it very, very useful to sort of pace myself. Obviously, my job is a little bigger than everyone else's on this call for the holidays, but I found that to be a really great trick. Someone who could help me sort of get out some of that nerve. We'll do yoga or just go outside and meditate. Use familiar books and items to put around you. So like a lot of people will have Judaica in their home. And if you put that on the table you're using, whether it's a kitchen table or a desk, that could be helpful to sort of trigger sort of like okay, so I'm not in a synagogue, but when you walk into a synagogue, you have the Arona Kodesh, you have the Eternal Light, you have all sorts of, you have different Sidurim. So it feels like a synagogue. Try to make that small space. Pictures of loved ones. So I'm just choosing a few pictures. So here's one of my favorite, my grandfather on Masada, overlooking Masada in Israel. And when we took him after I graduated college, and he was I mean, if you thought you've been on a tour with someone who asks a lot of questions of their tour guide, you have no idea what that experience was like for the tour guide. And, and here's one when Trudy was born. The girls picked this out today, where Annie met Trudy for the first time. And so, put different pictures of loved ones around you, because if you're not with some of those people from the past, meaning people who are deceased, but people are also who are alive, that sets a tone that you're with family and surrounded. Dress up for the occasion. So this is like the second or third time I've been in a suit since this started. But dress up, so if services are at 9 and, for example, some services are at the time they normally were, but if you're going to services, get the kids ready. Make sure you're certainly not in a Twins shirt, Emily, but in any sort of, oh, it's Wisconsin. Okay. That's fine. That's passable. So make sure you're in your dress clothes and that what you were planning on wearing. And if you're someone who gets a new outfit every year for the holidays, get a new outfit. If you're someone who wears a special tallis or a kittle, put that on. Make sure the experience feels the same as you begin. Special kippah. I wore a 2005 White Sox World Series kippah that I got on Ben Yehuda Street today, but I did that purposefully. Like everything about the intentionality and the tricks, triggers, and treatments will help you get into that experience, because you're not going to have the natural walking into the synagogue, seeing the same people type of experience. So begin to create it. And all this you should be doing this now so that you're able to be ready and prepared. So best practices, okay? Do all your prep far in advance. This is a family, by the way, down here, the Burdicks, who own a clothing store. So for Temple of Aaron, subscribe to YouTube. Don't subscribe the day of, right? All our services will be on YouTube. Pre-register for things you need to pre-register. Do not wait for the last second, because unlike most years, where you could call last second to get that extra ticket or to go early and reserve your seat or whatever it is, you don't have that this year. So if you're struggling at the last second, your services will be frustrating. Make sure you're pre-registered, prepared. Designate an area in your house for the holidays to sit every single service. That doesn't mean to take a break or to watch some of the extra stuff on the side outdoors, but I would advocate for whatever space you're going to use, make sure it's distraction free. If you're on the couch, clean the couch. You don't want to be like, oh, what's this on the couch, under the couch cushions, because you're going to be fidgeting. Clear the desk. If you're going to be watching from a desk or a table, make sure it's free of, I'll just speak for Emily and I, crayons and coloring books and all those things. Make sure those are away. Elsa can, exist right after services if she needs to. Use routines that you normally use. Shower in the morning. For those of you who don't shower regularly in the morning, also that's important too. Just a heads up. Wear dress clothes, special religious garments, etc. Place pictures of loved ones, alive and those who have passed away. Place a marker. So at Temple of Aaron, everyone's going to be getting a rock with our logo on it, and we are going to be using that throughout the holidays as a touch point, so that like Emily knows that she's holding on to the same rock that I'm holding on to as well, and we can feel a little bit more a part of our community. can act as a paperweight after the services, or keep it in a tallis bag or something. So we'll be sending those out to our older congregants and those who are homebound. And then we'll be, I think next week, we'll have like bins outside of the synagogue. You can just come up and pick one. And you can also use those, by the way, if you want to ever go to the cemetery and place that on a loved one so they feel part of the community as well. If you want an award at the synagogue, put that out as a plaque, a reminder of a special moment. If you have a siddur or a machzor that you only use during this holiday, and some people keep that in their tallis bag or things like that, that's great too. And also choose virtual backgrounds. So I just will stop sharing for a moment. For those who don't know, like if people are on Zoom or other things like that, you can have virtual backgrounds that set a mood. So here's the synagogue. I don't know why today it's like acting up in a weird, like you can see the shadow. It wasn't doing that yesterday, but okay, it is what it is. And then, or, just to have fun with the kids a little bit and bring smiles, like here we're at Disneyland, although I'm literally in Disney. I don't know why this is doing it today, but I wasn't doing it. So,
Honestly, I think it has something to do with how far you are from your screen. But
It does.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll blame my
green screen on your shirt.
Yeah, maybe I'll just blame someone. I'll blame my family for
You
screwing.
can blame me.
Okay, so and then again, as we talked about the 3 T's, the tricks, the triggers, and the treatments, set your mind and your body, right? So for those of you who are used to stretch, like I like to stretch a little bit before services. I'm also leading, but stretch out some of those kinks in your neck or your wrists or your shoulders, and set your mind. Like understand that you're setting surroundings and expectations so you can have a successful experience. Okay, so this is a picture of the rock, by the way, Emily. They're all different colors, but just so people know. So I want to spend a little time practicing, or this is a prompt to practice. So set your space now. So if wherever you are, if there's a distraction or two, sort of move them away.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot.
Just move 2, Barbara. Just move 2 distractions.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Emily, if there's a bee flying around, kill it so that you. I'm anti-bee. It's true. I'm okay with them for the world and the environment. I'm just anti when they come near me.
I'm in. There's no distraction right now.
Okay.
The children are inside. It's quiet. But I
busy.
should not eliminate the children during services. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, you should not eliminate them. But, it's important for them to understand that, like, be honest with them. Tell them we're going to synagogue. The synagogue just happens to be there, but you'll see Rabbi Fine and you'll see Cantor Feinblum, and there's going to be youth stuff. So now that, and then keep some things around you that may help you. So imagine you have your machzor in front of you. Imagine an image or if you have a real picture of a family member near you, meditate on that for just 1 second. And I'll use the one of my grandfather here. Place a marker. So like something that reminds you. Yes, Mom, you did that last time too. Okay, so I just gonna say, like, this is the rock. Let's just say I'm pretending, and I'm gonna place this marker in front of me so that I remember my community. So not just my family, but my community. Imagine you are dressed in what you plan on wearing. Take a moment just to think about what you might wear. And then we're all going to close our eyes and we're going to do a breathing exercise. So in yoga, we sort of take these 3 counts, but I'm going to use what the Navy SEALs do, which is a 5 count. Okay. And we're going to hold at 5 for 1 second or, 1 moment. And then we're going to release and then hold that release for 1, 2. So I'll lead us through that. And then we're going to do the Shema together. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and hold. And normally we do that 3 times, but for the sake of time or not, we'll say the Shema together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So it's important, again, to set your mind, your body, and your space, set surroundings and expectations. Okay, I'm going to open it up for, I know there's a lot of information. I'm going to open it up for questions and thoughts. That's great. By the way, Melissa, I love that. You're on mute. Hold on. All right.
These are my little rocks I made. Can you see this one says breathe with a little flower? I
Yeah.
can't.
Do you paint those, Melissa?
I made them. I made a bunch of them.
Well,
Anyone
you
who
didn't
wants-
make the rock, but you made the painting,
No, I
right?
got them at the beach. I did. I have all these sayings on them. So anyone who's around
That's
here,
great. And Melissa, I think that's a great. And if you have, if you could do a bunch of them, maybe that set the like your things that like maybe are meaningful to you for the holidays, and you can put them around. I think that would be a great
that's a
setting.
great idea. Thanks.
Yeah, love it.
I love them. I have them around now. It was my COVID thing.
Great.
Nice.
Emily, thoughts, questions? No, you're good. You're ready to go. And I can't tell you how much this year is really like not the year we should be rushing. So for those of you who are like, your family is normally late to services, let's say, okay? Or you know you're always late running out of the house. Like this year you could be set back, meaning your services might be shorter, or you might have missed an announcement, and you, the more distracted, you're going to have more distractions around you. So the more prepared you are, and the more you set your surroundings and your expectations, the better you will be. I mean, don't expect that this is going to be a high holidays where you get to sit and just sit back and listen, because you know the phone's going to ring, or people are going to be nervous. Or for those of you who haven't been around people in a while, like as someone who's, we've had a few indoor services so far, and I can just speak for myself. The first one was a fairly nerve-wracking. The second one wasn't. I was my body and I was much more calm and used to the experience. So for those of you who are going to like in-person things for the first time, there's a lot of nerves around that, and that will just cloud your experience. So set surroundings, set expectations, and be intentional.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. Unless there's any other questions, I want to thank Melissa, Barbara, Carol, Emily, and Nan for joining us. And Shana Tova Mitukata, everyone.
You as well.
Thank you. Love
Thanks
you.
to you. Shana
Bye,
Tova.
Emily. Happy New Year. I'll miss you this year.